Hi, it is Sheila Caldwell with the Heart2Heart Foundation. And today we're going to bring you a very special conversation with two of my favorite people. One of the things that we have been working on this year with the Heart2Heart Foundation is our Saving the Saviors program. Now, this is a program that we are producing especially for our first responders. And as we were talking through it, one of the things that we thought about was one of the subject matters about addressing mental health issues. And of course, stress, depression, all of the things, anxiety that plays into that when you are a first responder. But we thought it would be an interesting conversation to also include the spouses or the significant others of the first responders and how it affects them. So one of our team members for our Saving the Saviors program just happens to be some friends that my husband Bill and I made last year when we became part of the Survivors Have Heart program with Bob Hartford. And we got to know Randy and Katie Feltner, and we got to know their story, which is absolutely incredible. I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to let them tell it. And got to know them as fellow survivors. So just to introduce, but we are going to be joined by Randy Feltner and his wife, Katie. Randy is the Battalion Chief of Operations, Naval District, Washington Fire and Emergency Services in Indian Head, Maryland. So he is there in a huge area. And so welcome. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you.
So just as an introduction of the two of you, so people know your story. Randy, tell us your story, because you have such an incredible story, not only of survival, but of how you have used this experience to touch others over the years.
Okay, so almost 2 years ago now, October 11th, 2018, I was at work and we went to the gym like we do every day, and was in, 10 or 15 minutes into our workout with our trainer, and the lights went out. And about 3.5 minutes later, I woke up. I had gone into cardiac arrest, and my own crew rushed, within seconds and started doing what they're trained to do. I like to think I take full credit for their training, but they brought me back real quick, and I woke up, and all my guys are standing over top of me, and they didn't really tell me what happened. They just told me I was having a heart attack, and went on to the hospital. And then as the day went on, I kind of found out how, I was checked out for a few minutes and didn't have a pulse. And, I would have never known it other than being a little sore. I felt fine afterwards. Probably a lot of that was just adrenaline. But the ironic thing is not when I first started being a firefighter, but not too long after, she kind of convinced me to get myself in shape. And since then, been kind of the guy pounding my fist on desks saying, hey guys, let's get out of the recliners and go to the gym and work out. And kind of the one leading that. I'm I'm a wellness and fitness trainer for firefighters through the wellness and fitness program that the IAFF has set up. And then I'm the one that has the heart attack on duty and goes into cardiac arrest, and, I survived that. And my wife let me have a pity party for myself for about 45 minutes. From then on, it was, hey, you're not dead. You're still here. Let's use that. And I didn't know if I was gonna be able to come back to work or not. Obviously, I just knew I was still alive and I wasn't going to stop doing whatever I was doing. So we went, immediately. She's a trainer as well, so she put me to work in the gym and got me going slowly and back up the pace. And now other than the stents that are in my heart and the medicine I take every day, I would never know that I had a heart attack to start with, other than I constantly tell everybody about it at all times. So now we've kind of gone on the road and go and talk to different firefighters and different groups and spoke at churches and all these other places to kind of just spread the word that, how important it is to take care of yourself and, and not only with that, but, what to do if something tragic does happen to you, because that's not easy to deal with either.
I think about you all the time, and I tell your story all the time. At the age of 38, I mean, incredibly young. And we often tell people that among firefighters, about 50% of the deaths in firefighters is not job related. It's heart disease. And a lot of people are really surprised by that. And at your age, I'm sure that was the last thing on your mind. Katie, what went through your mind when you got that phone call?
I didn't believe him. He called me from the ambulance, so I thought he was joking at first. And then I realized he was telling the truth, and I thought it was just a little thing because he called me himself from the ambulance. So we had one little girl at the time. We now have two. But our daughter had just turned 3 at the time, and so got her up from her nap and off to the hospital we went. And I got to see him before he went into the cath lab, and he seemed fine. So I didn't know the whole story either. I thought he was fine.
Well, I guess, and of course, I'm not the wife of a first responder, but having grown up as a military brat, I have a little bit of a context, I guess. But I guess as the wife of a first responder, especially a firefighter, I guess you're always kind of bracing yourself for that call, that one day that phone is going to ring and it's going to be something's happened. But I don't think this was the call you were expecting at all.
No, and then like now if I just call her to say hi on
what happened?
Or when I first went back to work, because it happened on a Thursday. So between like 1 and like 2 o'clock on anytime I would call her on a Thursday, is, are you okay? Are you all right? What's going on? And before, it was, almost 20 years of doing this and never, I'm sure she thought it, but never really said it. And now it's kind of like, hey, why are you calling me? Like, so something's wrong.
Or if you don't answer the phone, that's where I get in trouble. If I don't answer right away, Bill's like, are you okay? Where are you? So I think phone trackers are a wonderful thing, because that way he's kind of like, okay, she's still driving. Everything's good. If I don't answer right away. So I get that.
I'm definitely a lot better about telling her if I'm going to be doing something where I won't answer the phone.
Right.
That is a good thing. So Randy, how long have you been a firefighter?
20 years. Been a volunteer for 20 years, and in year 17 as a paid firefighter.
So 20 years as a firefighter, and you guys have been married for how long?
Almost 17.
Yeah, we got married the first year I was on the job.
Oh wow. Okay, so you've lived this life. You're not a newbie. No. Because I often wonder, when we were talking about first responders, and we're talking about how maybe somebody is a new volunteer firefighter, or maybe they're new to the department, and maybe they've just gotten married. Maybe they're a first-time firefighter, or they're a firefighter and they've just gotten married. And you're in leadership, so Randy, this may be from your perspective too. But what do you because there's a lot of this. And one of the things we talk about very often when we talk about people that have had cardiac events is that depression is very common. Did you go through any of that after your event?
Yeah, but it was more, it wasn't like where it was like a constant state of like, I would just have like, bad days or like be upset, because it was such a, like our routine every day that I was off was she works at the gym. So we would go to the gym from 9 to 12, and Nora would go play in the gym with the other kids, and I would get, I'd go run or go lift weights or do whatever while she's working. And then all of a sudden I couldn't do that. I could, but I couldn't do it like I was doing it. And that was really hard for me to deal with, or having to listen to everybody say, oh my God, you're so lucky. Oh my, or, if, I pick up like, a paper bag at the store. Are you sure you can do that? Right. Are you okay? Like, yes, man, I got it.
Or you're never going to be able to travel again. You're never going to be able to do this.
You're never going to be able to do that. I actually had like one person, and to this day, I've never said anything to him, but I was laying in the hospital bed in the ICU and have some, I could hear someone say, "Oh, that guy's, his career's over." Like, and I don't, they didn't mean that like in a bad way, but I just remember thinking to myself, first of all, no, you don't, nobody knows that. And just, having people put limitations on you, kind of, it gets in your head. And so I would have bad days or bad times, but, I kind of, between her and the munchkins running around, kind of changed that. And then, getting to meet you guys and doing what we did down there was a big help. Just kind of, between you and Tamika and Kate and then Chris, kind of seeing where everybody was at, and it helped me kind of be able to process, hey, it's going to be, everything's going to be fine. And then, it was before then, and then even better now.
I would agree. I think, and my heart attack was 8 years ago. And of course, our experience with Bob Harper was over a year ago. Mm-hmm. There were things that day that Bill and I shared with one another that we never talked about. It was kind of there.
Yeah, I watched that video 100 times, and the first thing he says, "I've never said this out loud."
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Like, and a lot of the stuff that she said to me or I said to her, I knew it, but I never said it, or I knew she felt that way, but I never heard her say it. But
it was a very healing. Yeah, it was a very healing process. As a matter of fact, when we post this, I'm gonna tag your interview, because it is such. I watch those and I still cry. All of them, mm-hmm. I still cry, and so I'm going to post those. But you bring up an interesting thing about how you felt after your cardiac event, and I know as we have all worked on this Saving the Saviors program, and that program is really about prevention and early detection. We want to try to identify first responders who are at higher risk of a heart attack within the next 5 to 10 years. And some of the feedback that we've gotten is that, number one, they don't want HR or their bosses to know that they're getting screenings, and they're worried about people finding out. And I think one of the aha moments that I had as we were working on this initially was the fear in some of them of, if I go and get the advanced screenings done and somebody finds out and I have an issue, do I lose my job? Can I no longer volunteer and be a firefighter?
Yeah, and so I deal with that, and I've dealt with it, my entire career. I have guys that freak out every year when they have to go do their physical, and I've been that before, because when I was a bigger than I was, my blood pressure was a little higher sometimes, and I get a little white coat syndrome anyway. So when I go over there, the doctor's like, "Hey, you gotta get your blood pressure down, or we just retake it, or your blood work's a little weird, or something like that." And that's the first thought in my head is, "Oh my God, like, I'm the provider for the family. What's going to happen now?" And then I kind of think back to one of our chiefs. They found he had cancer in his lymph nodes, and the only reason they found it is because they had done an X-ray at his physical. And if not, they hadn't caught that, it'd have been another 2 years before he got another X-ray, and that could have been, a killer for him.
And the good news is, if we can catch it early, there's a good chance that we can make some lifestyle changes, that we can get with somebody like Katie, who's going to put us in the gym and get us back into shape and get us to eat healthy and stuff. And then we can prevent, those heart attacks or those strokes from occurring, and God forbid, premature death. So on the physical side, there's a lot that we can do. And I know we've talked about this in our team meetings before, about the mental health component of being a first responder. And I think that you had shared before about what you all do, for your staff when you have an issue. But I think for us civilians, to understand that when you go to, say, a fire or a crime scene, what you are seeing, how you process that, how you may want to insulate your spouse and your family from those things, but how you deal with it yourself. But then how do you help your crew through that?
So one thing that we've gotten a lot better at in the fire service or first responders is admitting that it's an actual issue. Just up the road from us, the big firefighters union opened this facility that takes everybody in that has mental health issues or addiction issues or anything like that. And I have friends that have gone to this place because they got problems because of stuff that they've seen or stuff that they've experienced. At my news station where I'm at now, I mean, I think in the past 2 months, my guys have gone out and seen basically 2 kids that have been murdered. And, we're all big, tough firemen. And, the way we deal with it is, sometimes people would think it's probably a little maybe off-putting, but we come back to the firehouse and we have the intervention teams that come in. But before they get there, the way I try to deal with it with them is, instead of, hey, are you okay? I do that, but we kind of just sit around and talk about it. And by them at least getting it out and talking about what they saw and whatever, at least they're not bottling that stuff up to take it home to the wife and the kids, because, you're not doing anybody any good by doing that. So, with us, we're such a close-knit family at the firehouse anyway that, we can say, hey, something's not okay, and kind of get it out that way without, we're not sitting in a corner, crying or doing whatever, but we're still having a healthy conversation to get it out. And to me, I think that's the thing that, we're getting better at that, but we still have a long way to go. And I think, on my end, as far as in the leadership role, we've got to be able to support them. And with us, if something happened today, whatever, a kid drowned in a pool on the base, everybody that's at work that is not working anymore. Anybody that ran that call, they're done for the day. Someone's coming in and they're going to talk to them, and they can stay. They might not want to go home and see their kids because it's too fresh. They might want to just stay at the firehouse, but they're not working anymore. They're just going to hang out and do whatever. That way, they're not a danger to the public that are trying to help because their mind's somewhere else, but they're also kind of taking time to decompress for themselves. So when they're ready to go home and see their wife and kids, they're not, so built up with rage, why this happened to this kid, and then take it out and blow up at somebody and then cause more problems in their life.
So Katie, since part of what we wanted to do was to also address the spouses of the first responders, and you guys have been walking this journey for 17 years. And of course, it seems like, as Randy said, only in the last maybe couple of years has mental health become a priority when we're talking about these things. I think we do. We do see you guys, Randy, as big, tough firefighters or police. That's how we visualize. You're the heroes. You got everything but a cape on. And but you're still human beings. You still hurt. You still, it's anguish. But for Katie, it may be a husband or it may be a wife that's dealing with it, depending upon the first responder. But when Randy comes home, and this has been over the course of your marriage, how have you been involved in those conversations and helping him and dealing with it yourself, knowing what he has experienced?
Well, I always just let him talk about any call. I start out by saying, how was your shift when he comes home? And then if he says they had a terrible call or something, I let him tell me about it. And then if he doesn't want to keep talking about it, I don't push the issue about what else happened, or what kind of calls did you have? It usually comes up in conversations. And then sometimes when he was closer, I would hear about the call. Now that he's over in a different state, I don't hear as much of the calls, but when he was closer, I would know what would happen. Just
Small town.
yeah. And so sometimes I would say, were you on that call, or did you run that accident? And so I would just happen to ask, and that would lead to a little more conversation than before. But he's a talker, so usually I would get it.
He's a pretty open book. He likes to share. Whenever you bring on a new firefighter, maybe they're just right out of training, and this is their first step. How do you prepare the firefighter and maybe even their spouse or significant others for what to expect and how to process and how to deal with what they're going to experience? Because it's one thing to be in training, it's another thing to be face to face with these things.
Yeah, so I think this kind of applies really more at my volunteer firehouse here in town, because when we get new people there, they're new. Like they just, in the same way I was, I had a buddy of mine bet me that I would enjoy it, and I was like, you guys are a bunch of hillbillies, I'm not going to do that. And then I decided to go down there and do it and had a great time. But, when they come to work at the firehouse, for me, most of the time, most of the guys we get have been volunteers somewhere else. So they know what's going on, or they've been in the military, because I work for the government. We get a lot of military firefighters too. So they've been on deployment. The biggest thing is, and it was hard for her, is just the time commitment, because before I was a paid fireman, I would work 10-hour days, and then I would go to the firehouse for 3 or 4 hours, and then I would show up at her house at 10 o'clock at night and be like, hey, let's hang out. And I'm sure she felt like, great, I get to see you for 35 minutes today. And and then when I became a paid fireman, I was gone for 24 hours, and that was an adjustment too, just because she lived here and she didn't have any family here, and it was just kind of by herself. And I think that's the biggest thing I was trying to tell people when, I had a friend of mine, he actually just got married, and he's a paid fireman now, and he joined our volunteer house as a 22-year-old kid and a 20-year-old kid, and started dating this girl, and so I think I'm gonna get married to her. And I was like, does she know what she's getting into? Because you're going to be, you get a paid fireman's job, you're not home every night. And that's a lot of time away. So you have to be able to, you got to be able to trust that they're taking care of everything at home when you're not there. And that's the hard part with the stress, because one, I like that she's not in the fire service and she doesn't know anything about the fire service other than what you see on TV. But because if I have an issue, I'll ask her a question and I'll get an impartial answer. I won't get an answer from someone who has whatever. And so I do that a lot with, if I have to discipline someone, I'll just ask her what she thinks, because she has no idea, one, who these people are, and or about any kind of backstory. And it's good to have a partner in that understands what I'm going through, but is not subject matter expert to kind of sway whatever I'm feeling too. She's ultimate support with that.
She's a good sounding board.
Yes.
Yes. So the question, I think, on everybody's mind this year, as we are into October of 2020 already, if it's not enough to deal with the day-to-day that you have to deal with as a first responder, we decided in 2020 we're going to throw a pandemic on you guys, which I cannot imagine what you have been through this year. How has COVID affected you all?
It's been wonderful. personally, our lives didn't change that much because, you know, we were in the process of adopting our second baby, so we really weren't doing anything anyway. And it gave us a lot of time to just kind of get ready for that.
Get the room ready, get our older daughter ready.
We're both 40 now. So, and I'm not supposed to tell your wife's age, but we're both 40 now. And, you know, the crazy going out days, those are kind of over with anyway. So that really didn't affect anything. And
the only thing I probably worried more about was him getting it 2 weeks before the baby was born and not being able to go, because we didn't know if we could go to the hospital anyway.
Yeah.
And so that was my big fear, is bringing it here with a newborn.
Yeah. But we, you know, home life's been, you know, actually I liked it because it slow down. Like we've been able to do more like playing outside and just doing stuff around the house. And she's homeschooling Nora. Not virtual school, and actually homeschooling her. And she's doing, you know, Nora's doing great with all that. And so that part's been great. Work life has been crazy. I actually was on the phone last night at 10 o'clock with another guy in the department talking about coronavirus stuff. It's every day.
So have you guys had, I'm assuming, especially where you're located, a lot of COVID calls? Has it affected some of your team there? So
our department, we're treating every call like they're COVID. So every time they go out, they're wearing N95s and doing whatever. And if they're a suspected COVID patient, they're, you know, gowns and glasses and face masks, face shields, and everything. And with us having the CDC so close and everything in DC, you know, we kind of get, you know, all the updates as fast as we can. And we've had in our department, we've had 3 or 4 or 5 people get it. The first month, a guy at my station, he found out that he was around someone who had it, because he's a volunteer firefighter as well. He found out that they didn't know they had it, and came and worked. They were just helping out, and he got it, and he was at work for 2 days. Luckily, he didn't infect anybody at work, but you know, I had to send like 6 guys home for 2 weeks, and we were working a lot of overtime and moving people around, and you know, doing extra cleaning, and that's kind of kept up since then. And you know, you get one here and there, or somebody got exposed and needs to go home for a couple of weeks, but you know, trying to be as proactive as possible without stressing everybody out as much as possible, because it's always something different every day. I'm glad you guys have stayed healthy, especially considering you brought another little girl into the family. Oh yeah. If you had advice, you know, we're talking again, specifically, we're focusing on mental health right now, as part of this outreach. But if you, and or Katie for that matter, if you have advice for other first responders, what would it be? So for me, I don't care what I'm doing at work. And, you know, some days we're really busy, and some days I'm done with everything I'm doing by 10 o'clock and I'm walking around the station bothering everybody. But I take at least half an hour every day that I'm on shift and either go work out, or just like the other day, I sat outside on the tailgate of one of the inspectors' pickup trucks and just by myself, you know, no cell phone, no nothing, and just decompressed. You know, I think, and that helps me. And I think it's so important, because if you don't take that time for yourself, I don't think you're any good to anybody else. Like I've watched guys over the years, and they just compartmentalize everything, and they got to be on, and then they just blow their top. And, you know, when they do that, especially in a leadership role, like I don't feel like you're any good to anybody, because no one's going to listen to you. And then then they don't feel like they can trust you. And so for me, it's very important for me to just take 30 minutes and find your happy place and just chill out. Whether like I'm doing yoga, sometimes I'm reading a book, sometimes I'm just staring at the sky, like it, you know, whatever I need to do to kind of calm myself down and turn it off for a few minutes. And luckily enough, my guys are good enough to me, and that I have enough faith in them where if I take 30 minutes away from whatever I'm doing, that they can handle it, and I come back, everything's gonna be fine.
And Katie, what about you?
I mean, the same thing. I have to have time to decompress. And I'm here with the two girls when he's at work.
So her job is way more stressful than mine.
For 48 hours when he's on shift. So especially now during coronavirus, the gym was closed. You know, we don't have as many people to watch the girls while I want to go out for a run or something. So I do work out more at home. Either I get up early to do it, and once they go to bed, I do some stuff that I like to do by myself, play a game, read.
And I know you both are personal trainers, and one of the things when we're talking back again about the physical aspects of health, especially our heart health, but the exercise component, and that being one of the best things that we can also do for mental health, is to get moving. I mean, really, the exercise is a big part of that.
Yes. I say running is my free therapy.
Yeah, oh yeah. And we've actually gotten a little group together now on my shift that, you know, kind of started with one or two guys just kind of goofing off, and now we've got 3 or 4 or 5 guys every day. And even if, you know, with some of the older guys who aren't runners, we just go for a walk just to get, you know, some blood moving and, you know, kind of just forget about whatever we got to do for the day for half an hour and just, you know, kind of everybody get on the same page and relaxed. And I think it makes the day go by better, because being cooped up in that firehouse right now, we can't have visitors. You know, we can't go here, can't go there, because we're on such restrictions due to coronavirus, where, you know, just getting away from the building for a few minutes is therapy for those guys too.
I think there is a lot of wisdom there, and I want to thank you guys again for taking time out of your busy day. I know you're off this afternoon and you're working on some plans for a very special birthday for a certain little almost 5-year-old in the house. So happy pre-birthday to Nora. And but it's good to see you guys, even if it's virtually. And thank you for your time, and thank you both, because we know we're partners, right? When you're married, you are partners. You may be the first responder, Randy, but it's a package deal with you too.
She works way harder than I do. I don't, you know. I get to go play with my buddies for 48 hours. She has to deal with all the real stuff.
Oh my gosh. But thank you guys for your time today and for your service and for all that you do to keep your community safe. So thank you for joining us for this time, as we had a wonderful chat with Randy and Katie Feltner. Again, if you or someone you know in your family is experiencing mental health issues, please reach out to NAMI. We'll provide that information following this program, but never hesitate to let somebody know when you need help. Thanks, and remember that the better you love your heart, the longer it can love you back.